So hi guys. So I think we'll just start in the next 2 minutes. By then I'll just introduce myself. Can someone confirm if I'm audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
So hi guys. So I think. Okay. Thank you. So I joined IIT Delhi in 2015 with an All India rank of 151. I graduated in 2019, and I took a drop to prepare for CAT and more for CFA than CAT, and I cleared CFA as well as I got an 100 percentile in CAT 2019. That's last year. So subsequently, I joined FMS Delhi, where I am currently pursuing my MBA, and I'll be joining Carmi. It's a consulting company. I don't know if you know about it, and I'll be joining them this summer. So yeah, I'll just switch on my video. Okay, thank you. So I think I'll just wait for one more minute and then we can start. Throughout the session, if you have any questions pertaining to what I've just said, so you can put that in the chat and I'll address it as and when I can. Thank you. Okay, I think it's 2 p.m. So I'll think just out of respect for your time, I think we'll just start. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to just get three things out of the way before I deep dive. So the first thing would be that CAT is not a test of your knowledge. Most of you might have heard of that before, but fortunately, unfortunately, it's not a test of your knowledge. So you don't need to know a lot of things. You just need to do right during the paper. So all that matters is the 2 hours that you are going to be spending. Last year it used to be 3 hours, but this time I think it's 2 hours. So it's not a test of your knowledge. So if some of you might be having that thought in the back of your mind that you don't know enough, so that is irrelevant. It doesn't matter. Secondly, I like to uh, point out that this cat is not as important as you might be thinking. So it's in a longer of time scale, you'll realize that it doesn't really matter. So at this point, I understand 1 week before the exam, you might be thinking that yeah, this is going to be the most important day of your life. Even I thought so. So that's good to keep you focused, but don't focus on that much that you stress yourself. It's important that you remain calm, specifically for this last week. And the third thing I just want to mention, and I think I'll just then start with the process. So okay, I think I'll just start with the process. So I'll talk about the examination day. So I'm going to assume that a lot of you don't would be attempting the CAT examination for the first time. So I'll just tell you how it goes. So in my time, my slot was the morning slot from 9 to 12. So I had to wake up at 7. I got ready and be at the center by 8. And then there's a lengthy procedure to get into the examination hall, half an hour. And then the important part is that for the last half an hour from 8:30 to 9, you're just sitting there staring at empty screen, and I just want you to be prepared for those 30 minutes. So don't introspect on what you have done in those 30 minutes. Just keep a cool head. I'm emphasizing on this again and again, that this is going to be what be the deciding factor. This will be the deciding factor how you conduct yourself during the examination. What you know, how much you have practice, those are good things for now. But on the examination day, how well you are able to conduct yourself, that is going to decide it for you. So don't introspect at that moment. If you want to introspect, do it right now. Okay, so let me just check the agenda. So I think I have introduced myself, and all right. So one more thing I like to mention here, that it doesn't matter from where you are getting the marks, as long as you are getting the marks. So a lot of us, if you are if some of you are from an engineering background, so you might have that complex that you have to do good in quant. Cat can show you within 5 minutes that you are not good in quant. So going with any preconceived notion that I'm going to score this much in this section, this much in this section, that's not going to help you. That's going to backfire upon you. So go with a clear head, zero assumptions, zero expectations from the examination. Okay, so I think that's enough about this. We'll maybe now just talk about the examination sections particularly, and we'll take that in the order that they occur. So the first one would be VARC. Now, a lot of people are very skeptical about the VARC section, and I understand the frustration arises from the fact that it's easier to blame it on your grammar or the fact that it's English. It's not relevant to a management course. So I just like to clarify something, and I have said this to a lot of people over the last 2 years. I attempted CAT twice, and both times I had a decent percentile, and it was backed more on the VARC section. So I'll like to emphasize this, that out of these three sections, VARC is probably the most logical one and also the most relevant one, because I have been pursuing MBA for the, like, my semester is going to get over. I have examinations from Wednesday. So in this first semester, the most of what we have done is read case studies, lengthy case studies, 25 pages every day, multiple courses, understand what's the content of that case study, and draw conclusions and add my opinions to that. And that is, in a nutshell, what the reading comprehension part of the VARC would be about. So don't take it lightly that VARC is not relevant. A lot of people make that mistake. They don't take it seriously. VARC is very serious issue. Having said that, another misconception is that you need to have a very you need to read very fast. That's not the issue. You need to read sufficiently fast, but you also need to be able to comprehend, but more importantly, be able to retain what you are reading. Because the common mistake what people do, and now I think I'll in a minute share my screen and go through one comprehension. I'll just walk you through my strategy of attempting the ARC section, and that will probably give you an idea. I'll just reiterate, if you have any questions you can put it in the chat. I'll keep reading them and I'll answer them whenever I get anytime. Yeah. So also I like to mention that at this point, uh, neither am I the right person to guide you based on your academic background, if you may or may not get into any certain college. And that is also something you should not be worrying about. You should first focus on getting the shortlist, and for that you have to ace the cat. So don't think about your past academic grades. Okay, so that's out of the way. So what was I mentioning? Yeah, so I'll be should be asked out now. You can keep like whenever you have a doubt, you can put it in the chat. I'll keep reading it and I'll answer it as and when I can. Yeah, so straight into VARC section. Now you only have 40 minutes. We used to have 1 hour. I think, considering all things, it's going to be easier for you now. That's probably something controversial. Like you guys probably think that a 3 hour examination would have been better because larger time allows you to manage the time better. But having said that, stamina is one of the most important thing, and I'll talk about it when we get to quant section. So you don't have to worry about the stamina. You only have to be good, do good for 2 hours. So stamina is out of the way. Now, okay, so we'll talk about VRC. I'll just present my screen in a minute. The important thing, and I'll recommend this to everyone, that do not start with VA section. In the VARC section, do not start with the VA part at first, because you might be able to get marks from VA. But reason number one, for the last 10 minutes, if you have an entire 6 questions passage or you have a lot of reading comprehension passages, that puts a lot of stress on you, because you have to read an entire passage, draw conclusions, go back to the passage, read it again. That's a lot of thing to do in 10 minutes, specifically the last 10 minutes, because that's the time you're going to be most stressed about this section. So do not do something that's going to mentally stress you, straight away start with reading comprehension. That's what I'll recommend you. Just for the records, I had 100 percentile in both VARC section both years, this 2019 2018. So I think I have certain authority to say this, that do not start with the VA section. uh, Start with the RC section. Now, talking about the RC section, so let's say you have 4 passages this year or 5 passages. We had, I think, 6 passages, more or less. So let's say you have 3 or 4 passages. Now, the first question, and that is a constant for all 3 sections, that the first question that you pick, the first passage, the first comprehension, or the first question that you pick in either of the section, that is very important for you, and more so for the first 2 sections. For the reading or comprehension part, let's say the importance of choosing the first passage should be something that you are comfortable with. And take it from me that there would be something out of the 4 passages that you have, that you are more comfortable with, and there are passages that are meant to be there to annoy you, to trap you, to, their language would be difficult, their writing style would be more complex, contemporary English passages. So I'll just, I think at this point, yeah, how to choose a passage. Yeah, Siddharth, I'm coming to that. So I'll just present my screen now. So can someone confirm if you can see uh, these two white? Can you see the question paper? Hello. Okay, you're saying it in the chat. Yes. Okay. Sure. I got it. Got it. Got it. Yeah. Okay. So this is last year's paper which I attempted, and yeah, Akash, please don't draw if you can. Thank you. Yeah. So this is last year's paper. On the right side, these are both the same papers. I'll be just walking you through how to pick the passage. Now let's just focus on the right side of the screen. Right. I started the paper. I looked. I go by the order that the paper gives. Anyway, I'm going to choose the comprehension to it. Doesn't matter in which order I read it. So now read the first few lines. Aladdin. There's a lot of name for the first line. The first European translator of. Now this is something that I'm not that comfortable with, and I might be, I might not be. I'm just going to skip this. This is the speed at which you should be deciding. Don't spend a lot of time in deciding which passage to choose, because you need as much time as you can for actually reading the paper and solving the paper. So this is the same passage. Now this is the second passage. Free of the taint of manufacture. That phrase in particular is heavily loaded with the ideology of Victorian socialist. I saw the word Victorian. I was out of there. I don't want to do this passage right at the beginning of the first star. Victorian, it probably have a lot of elements of the contemporary English that I don't want to read right at the start of the passage. Now I scroll forward. I scroll. Now this one, scientists. Now I have an academic background from engineering. Scientists is something I think I can relate to. Okay, so penguins. I see the word penguins. All right, it makes sense. This probably would be a passage on scientific adventure, technology, probably science. So this is something I think I can do. So and then I see that there are a lot of numbers. Now I personally am very comfortable with numbers. So I realize this might be a passage. Now you see, I'm not actually reading the passage. I'm just looking at it from a very objective point of view, and I'm able to see ऊपर से जो दिख रहा है, and I can see that there are a lot of numbers, words like scientist, Fahrenheit here. So this makes sense to me. I can start with this. I did not start with this passage, but I can start with this. Now, let's say this looked like a very comfortable choice to me.
Hey Divyansh, I'm
Yes.
sorry to interrupt, but can you just zoom in your screen because we are unable to see what the passage is
Okay.
all about?
So, can you see now?
Yeah, much better. Thank you.
Yes. Sure. I'll just do this. Okay, sure. So I think I'll just take it from where we left off. So yeah, so the bottom line being that this passage looks like something I can actually make something out of. See that I haven't yet started the passage. Don't jump to the first thing that looks desirable to you, right? And then I just move on to the next I just move on to the next passage. I see this makes sense. This is something I can start with. Internet shopping, all right, that makes sense. Internet shopping is the rage nowadays. I see the word consumers, research, comfortable. I see somewhere a number here. All right, that makes sense. I'm going to start with this passage now. See, this is something I could have done differently. I'm confessing here. I might have started with the penguin passage first and could have scored more, because that was something, in retrospect I think that was something I was more comfortable with. But as long as you are able to make sense of what you're going to do, it doesn't matter. It's not that relevant. So don't spend a lot of time. This entire procedure of choosing the comprehension, it took me less than 1 minute. The first minute I just did this. I did not read any passage. I just looked at the passages. Now, while going into this passage, so now we'll be talking about this passage. I'll move it to here, this side. Okay, so first let's explore this side. Okay, so at this point I just wanted to take a minute and read this passage. Just read it. Just a minute. I'll give you just a minute. Okay, let's assume, in the interest of time, let's assume that you have read the. Let me just plug in my charger. Short on battery. Yeah, so let's say that you have read the passage, right? Now you come to the first question. Which of the following hypothetical statements, blah, 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 least depth to the author's prediction of the fate of startups offering a few product options? Now, this doesn't make any sense now, does it? You read the comprehension. While reading the comprehension, you had no idea what you're looking for. Secondly, it's a long comprehension. And when you look at it from the perspective that you have to read four such passages in less than 20 minutes, 20 or 25 minutes, this is not what you would want to do. To just start with the comprehension and then look at the questions. What you should do is you should look at the questions first and then go with the comprehension. Now, this is a very generic statement that I've made. You might have heard it a lot of time. Every English teacher would probably tell you the same thing, that first read the question and then read the comprehension. I'll tell you why. Right. So now let's focus on this side. Okay. Okay, so now let's assume that you have not read the passage, you have just seen the passage, you think you are comfortable with that, your first minute is over. Now you are going to start with this passage. Don't read the passage. Read the question. First question, hypothetical statement. I see the word author, I'm out of there. See, author's prediction, author's opinion is something for which you have to understand the entire passage. So which is something you would be doing anyway. You are not going to get any materialistic value. What value you can get is from this question: which of the following best sums up the overall purpose of the examples of Casper and Glossier in the passage? Now this question tells me that there is going to be a term Casper and Glossier. When I'm going to read the passage, there would be something like Casper and Glossier. These are names. uh, so this gives me a
Uh,
mental map.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but could you please zoom out the screen? It's
Okay,
actually not visible.
can you see now?
Yeah, perfect. It's perfect now.
Okay, sure. So okay, so let's just read this question statement once again. Which of the following best sums up the overall purpose of the examples of Casper and Glossier in the passage? Now, why I'm paying more attention to this question is it's giving me something materialistic which is easier to remember and which will help me to mentally map the comprehension. Keep in mind, you are not reading the comprehension because it's interesting. You are reading comprehension because you have to answer the questions, and to be better able to do so, you need to remember which part comes from where. So now I know something from Casper and Glossier would be mentioned in the passage, and I'll pay attention to that. All right, similar thing I could have done for the 15th question as well. I read the author word, I was out of there. कि author की बात कर रहा है, I don't want to read this right now. But later on, if you read, they mention startups. So, okay, startups could also have been one of the mental maps. I call these as landmarks. I think you all are familiar with what landmarks are. Landmarks help you to get a better idea of what's about the surroundings, helps you to mentally map. This is the same principle. Startups, that could be one word, right? Casper and Glossier, Now go on to the 17th question. Now this question is, it's useless. All of the following, if true, would become the author's claims, except. Now for this, I have to read the four options. And what value could that provide to me? Because at this point, when I've not read the passage, how can I comment on author's claims? So I'm not going to read this question. Now I look at the 18th question. Based all of the following can be informed about consumer behavior. Now this is again something that I can, keep in my mind, at the back of my mind, that they will talk about consumer behavior and I will pay attention to that part, because when I come to the questions I will know कि अगर मैंने जितना पढ़ा है उससे क्वेश्चन आंसर हो रहा है तो I'll do that, but if I'm not able to do that, I know where consumer behavior is mentioned, so I'll just fall back to that part. You can keep on reading the next question as well, supported by the author. Right now this is again one of those things that you don't want to pay attention to, but in this question you see that there is a lot of numbers, so some sort of calculation would be involved. Okay, so back to the passage now. Can you see the screen? I'm assuming that you can see the screen. When I showed you this same passage on the right side, I did not highlight anything, but now when I'm showing it to you on the left side, left panel, you can see that I've highlighted a lot of things. These things that I have highlighted, these are more or less what I read from this passage. This is just what I read from the passage. You don't want to read every single word. You don't want to pay attention to a perfect storm. This is just a literary device. It's not going to help you answer the questions. What will help you answer the question is choice anxiety. You understand what anxiety is. Few options make better. So these two lines, choice anxiety plus few options make better, this gives you an idea that the passage is talking about that the customers have a lot of options, due to which they get a choice anxiety. There are a lot of choices, which choice should I go with? So a few options would make better, right? Marketing buzzwords, I've highlighted that. Because why did I highlighted marketing buzzwords? Because I saw that they were talking about customer behavior. I think customer behavior की बात हुई थी अभी किस क्वेश्चन में. So that is nothing but a marketing buzzword. So I'm going to focus on that. See, I'm highlighting it here. I did not have the provision to highlight during the actual examination. You guys understand that, right? There you have to do everything mentally. So what I'm saying is when I read this passage, I skipped this part. You also want to do that. Skip this part. Just move fast. Choice anxiety. Okay, I'll remember this. Few options make better. I'll remember this. Keep moving. Okay, so we can keep talking about this passage. This is where Casper is mentioned, which means this entire passage would be about Casper. So if when I go to the 16th question, I don't have to read the entire passage again to search for Casper. I know that Casper is somewhere here. And while I'm reading also, I'll make sure that जो question वहाँ पे था, overall purpose of the examples of Casper and Glossier, basically इस passage का summary क्या है, I'm going to focus on that. So this is more or less the strategy to go with during during reading comprehension. Now, I just want to make a disclaimer here. This probably looks very, I don't know, it probably looks easier to you, or it might look कि it's more difficult. ये तो बहुत complicated चीज बता दी, but it's not complicated when you actually get down to press tactics. When you actually try this, you'll realize this is much easier and a much smarter way of doing things, because you don't have to read every single word to get every question right. You don't have to do that. I think I'll just talk about the last question here. This is the 19th one. Which of the following products plan is most likely to be supported by the author? Now, see, this is just a hack. Okay, now this is something you don't want to do, but if you don't have the time, you will have to do. If they're talking about supported by the author, so the general structure of a reading comprehension of a comprehension would be that the first part in the starting, they'll make his proposition. Okay, then he might give certain examples to support that proposition. Then he might give certain examples to disagree with the proposition that he has mentioned in the first part. And the later part, the last passage, is basically where you will get the summary from. See, that's not always the case. It might be that you actually have to understand the entire passage, but if you don't have the time and you are stuck with a question like this supported by the author, so it's better, if you don't have the time, to just focus on the last, because in the last passage they might be making certain conclusions and they might be showing their skeptical nature, that I have made this statement, but I'm not, after writing all these examples, after myself going through this, I'm not sure if this proposition is correct. So that will give you an idea of the author's mindset. And remember, a lot of questions come from this, because they want you, cat wants you to be able to understand what the author is saying, and not just saying what he means by that. So that's the reading comprehension part. I'll stop sharing my screen at this point. I'll just have a sip of water, if you allow that. Thank you. If you have any questions, you can put it in chat. All right. So, okay. So no questions as of now. We can choose a passage. Okay, Shazam, you are being skeptical. That's okay. I'll talk about it again. How did you approach such questions? Vignesh, can you clarify for me what you meant by how to approach such questions? Akash, I'll take your question later on. Vignesh, can you explain? Yeah, so I just went through that, right? How I went through the question. I remembered, I read the questions. I kept in mind that what that question is talking about, and while reading comprehension, I focused on those parts mostly. So that reduced my reading time. And then when I once again read the question to actually mark an answer, if I was either able to retain from what I've read, or else I was able to, know that where this particular question is coming from. The selective reading according to the interest helps to choose the passage we actually want to answer. Yeah, Ashwin, see, your end goal is to answer all the passages, right? But if it makes sense to start with the passage you are actually comfortable with. I, being an engineer, I started with something, the penguin. That was my second, the penguin one. It was talking mostly about the concept of heat. That was something I was familiar with. So I picked that as my second comprehension. I started with this one because I saw numbers and customer, words like customer. So I I have my own YouTube channel, so I have an idea about what that actually is. Should we start practicing this new technique? Only 7 days are left. Pratik, if you even start and if you are not able to master it, it will certainly be of a lot of help to you. So because if your current strategy might not be working, and anyway you can fall back upon your current strategy. So I'll recommend that you start. And this is not something, which is not consistent with what you have been doing. Just read the question, and while reading the comprehension, just skip the part which you know are not relevant. What's the minimum number of questions we should attempt? Saloni, my belief has always been to attempt all the questions, but that is not something I recommend. Option based selection, that's something, but that can backfire upon you. So unless you can, in a particular question, you can shortlist that out of these four options only two are correct, only two can be correct, don't go with answering all the questions. Having said that, out of 300, I would say 150 to 200 would be a great score. How to start preparing for CAT 21? Okay, so I'll take these questions at the end, because for the out of interest, out of respect for the time, for those who are going to be attempting the paper in 7 days, they can leave at that point. What to do if you're stuck between two options when they are very similar in meaning? All right, I'll talk about this. How should we deduce title questions? Siddharth, can you explain what do you mean by title questions? Yes, Ashwin, as I think I was talking to you also. As I mentioned, it's not a completely new strategy, right? Sometimes I don't know where to search the answers, where to look. Did it happen to you as well? Yeah, Vignesh, that did not happen with me, because as I mentioned, while starting with the questions, I was able to retain what the question was talking about, and I was able to highlight mentally what the passage is talking about. So, if, for example, we talked about that Caspian and Glossier thing, right? So that was much easier to find. The consumer behavior thing, that now in the passage, the word consumer behavior was not mentioned, but what was mentioned was consumer was mentioned a lot many times. And what I highlighted in the second line, the marketing buzzword, that thing. So that helped me focus on the consumer behavior, because basically this gives you an idea, right? The passage is going to be structured. It's not going to be like you तुमको कोई random passage दे देगा and they'll ask you कि now answer, now do what you can. No, it's, the passage is going to be very structured. Do they provide enough rough sheets to solve the questions? Okay, Preeti, that's an excellent question. You will not get an extra rough sheet, so you might wanna save your rough sheets for the quant section. So verbal में वैसे भी need नहीं है, but try to save your sheets because I think I was down to the last page. It could have been worse for me. Like so, but yeah, then again, I do a lot of calculations. I write big, so that was one issue with me. But yeah, they gave you like 16 sheets, half the size of A4 size, and back and forth. So that's 32 sheets. I think that might be enough. Is it feasible to just mark materialistic questions from each passage and go ahead to another passage? You can do that, but only do that if you don't have the time. Right at the beginning of the 40 minutes, don't do that because you want to score the maximum and you don't know if that passage, the other questions, the questions which ask you to summarize. So you don't know if those questions are worth it. But if you don't have, see, you don't have to answer four out of this entire comprehension. You can just go forward with two, but do that when you don't have the time. When like already 20 minutes are over and you have to attempt the verbal ability part. How about if non-materialistic things, vague opinions are given in a shape, then in argument passage, then how to retain? How did you retain those? See, vague opinions are something you'll have to filter. So you know for that it will be helpful if you read the questions first. See, I'm repeating the same thing again and again, so you might think that that's the only thing I know, but that's something that will make sense. You see, you read the question and see if you are facing a lot of vague opinions, go back to the question, read the options as well. So that will give you an idea what the options are based on, and that will let you know what kind of conclusion they want to draw from the. See, this is what I'm trying to. My point is that the comprehension part, it's not supposed to be linear. That you start in the comprehension, then you do the questions, and everything is good. You go home. No, it's going to be back and forth. It's going to be a lot of back and forth. So to optimize that back and forth procedure, you have to make sure that you don't waste a lot of time in reading. You spend majority of your time reading the options of the questions, not the passage. That's what my point is. How should we reduce title questions? Siddharth, I don't think I can answer that because I personally have not ever faced any question where we had to choose the title for the question. So yeah, I understand what you're saying to say, but I haven't, so I don't think I'm the right person to say. I would not comment on that. I think we should move forward. You can keep putting questions in the chat. You can keep putting questions in the chat for RC as well as VA. See, for VA, there's no set strategy, but my uh, 2 cents on verbal ability part is that the mock tests that you have been doing, they are not logically consistent in the sense that VARC part for most of the coaching institutions. I did my test series from time, so these are not logically consistent. These passages because and the logic is simple. They have to make 25 question papers every year, 25 mock tests, then SAM cats. So that's a lot of things that they have to make. So their passages are not logically consistent that much. There might be a lot of stuff that's just put there to annoy you. Cat is not going to do that. The passage that they are going to put in the question paper, it's going to be sensible, it's going to be relevant, and even the questions in the verbal ability part, so they're not going to be like five options, jumbled para, five options, all five are very long, you are confused in all five. So that's not going to be the case. So conclusion here is that don't take your VARC mock test marks very seriously. Uh, Having said that, now I think I'll move on to the DILR part. For the DILR part, I think it's better if we directly start with Q&A. So, because there's not much to tell you apart from the fact that you can take your your mock test marks for the DILR part to be a good proxy, a good estimation of what you might score on the actual day. So take a minute here if you have any questions you want to ask. Uh, yeah, Gopalnath, you are asking a personal question. What made me choose FMS instead of IMA or IMB? Yeah, so I did not make it to IMA. My interview didn't go well. So after that, I realized that it's not of much sense to go to any other institution. because you'll be paying 20 lakhs for 2 years to do a virtual course. So I went with FMS, and I'm comfortable with Delhi. So that was one option. So I did not sit for the IIM Bangalore examination interview. How were you able to solve innovative sets in LRD exam even though you haven't solved those in mocks? Yeah, Vignesh, that's what you are preparing for, right? Because let's be honest, a lot of LRDI sets would not be same. They would be different. They would be new. So LRDI is going to be a lot about your presence of mind at this point, and that is why I've been, I mentioned the word stamina. You want to be at your best during the LRDI part. How I did so, Vignesh. See, the same type of strategy will apply. You choose the the set that you want to answer. So see, I personally had a very you know I thought that I'm not comfortable with Venn diagrams in passages also, and in quant section also. So you know if I see a Venn diagram passage, I just read the question to make sure that it's not as tough. But yeah, more or less I skip those parts. See, for the logical reasoning part, you know the drill. You make grids for that. So while during making the while preparing for the mock test, so I practiced LR a lot, logical reasoning, because see the questions for logical reasoning, at least they would not be, they'll be not out of context for you, because it would, bottom line is it would be more like कि five employees hai, five cities hai, five professions hai. You have to map these with each other. Certain data would be missing. So you can start with table structure. You make two tables. You pick the out of these three data sets that they've given to you, names of the people, city of their origin, and the jobs that they have. You have to map these. That Vignesh is from let's say Delhi, and he is uh, a consultant. So this is what I'm looking for. But now between these two data points that they've given, you can notice that there is a commonality, that they are mapping name to the city or name to the profession. If that's happening more, you take the name to be the common element in both tables that you are going to make. One table will not cut it if there are three data sets for you. Cat was different, right? Not five cities, five city wala were very different. See, it was different in the sense, yeah, I get what you're trying to say. I think you're mentioning the first passage. That was the passage I actually got stuck in. So I'll be straight up honest with you. I scored 66, I think, out of 96 in LRDI. And my peers, the other eight people who got 100 percentile, eight or nine, so they had close to 90. Some even had 96 in LRDI. So you know I did something wrong. So I went with this conception that this type of questions I will skip. So I actually ended up missing two questions because I got stuck in an innovative set, as Vignesh said. So it was innovative. It looked fun. So at that point, my professionalism went out of the window, and I spent a lot of time in that particular set. I got the questions right, but it was more of an educated guess. So I'll at this in LRD, I'll ask you to not be very emotional about anything. It's just a paper, so don't attach much value to certain set or the other. I'm yeah, a personal question later on, Akash. It's for everyone. To ASDLR, you gotta need to select the right question. Can you please enlighten? Yeah, Ashwin. So by that, see the example that I gave you. For me, it was Venn diagram. For you, it would be something else. Now, see, I am very comfortable with the graphs, and see, this is what your analysis is for, right? Like now, this is not the time. This remaining 1 week is not really the time to analyze your mocks again and again. But why do we analyze the mocks? To know your area of strengths, not just to know the where you are weak and work on that. That's an entire issue. But you should be knowing at this point, and you can do that in the next couple of days also. You can just go through your mocks, so you can know what is your strength and you can play up to that. So it's important to start with the right set. And I gave you my own example, Ashwin, that I started with the wrong set because it looked innovative, and I had this image for myself that this is something I can do. It's innovative. This is more in line with what I can do. So I started with the wrong passage and I paid for that. There was a time in the LRDA section that I actually had to take a break. I had to take a 1 minute break, that this is going downhill. So I kind of gave myself a small pep talk that move on to the other question. So that's something you'll have to do. Don't get attached to a certain set. Some sets look easy, but actually they're time consumers. How we can skip them while selecting sets. So Pratik, yeah. So while reading the sets, make sure that something, if it looks innovative, so it's probably a trap. The first set that I'm mentioning, it was very small. Right, 4 line passage. You had to make a diagram. You had to draw conclusions from that diagram. A 4 line set. That's like a lot, because LRDI में होता क्या है, बहुत सारा डेटा दे देते हैं डेटा इंटरप्रिटेशन वाले में, that looks overwhelming. So that's just a ploy to get you, stuck in the innovative question, as Vignesh is saying. I'm liking this word. So that's just a ploy to get you. I'll recommend that what I said for the reading comprehension part, the same will apply for LRDA as well. That don't start with a passage right away. Take a couple of minutes to decide which passage you want to start with. At the end, as I mentioned, in the first three things that you got out of the way, was you need to make sure that you score the maximum marks. From where and how you are getting those marks, it does not matter. Also, do you solve LRDI mentally? Because some of us aren't able to get speed even though I select correctly. So, Vignesh, yeah, so mentally, no, not for LRDI. For quant, yes, but not for LRDI. So for LRDI, the problem being is that you have to draw conclusions. So it's not like one problem, one answer. It's like you have to synthesize the entire set to be able to draw conclusions. So it's better if you don't try to do something mentally. It's better you just write. Don't worry about the paper limit yet, because otherwise it's very probable you might end up picking the wrong option, because that happens a lot in LRDA. Sorry to go back to VRC, but does lack of vocabulary prove to be a hurdle? You can answer this later though. Yeah, see, I'll tell you, Ashwin, I haven't been to school since ninth class. So I was in Kota, so dummy school. I have only been studying maths since ninth, maths and physics. So towards the vocabulary part, I'll say that even I would say that I'm not as good as other people, people from Delhi University, for example, case in point. So it's not going to be a hurdle. It's going to be, it will make sense. What helped you to get good speed? 4 plus 8 sets in LRDI. Picking the right set, and I was very during my mock test preparation, I focused a lot on making the tables. So when I read the question, I would straight away go and make the table. So that making of table, that was something I did really fast. So don't spend a lot of time. See, they are going to confuse you in n number of ways. They are going to give you 8 names, uh, all start with P, so that, because if they start with a name starting with A, name starting with B, right? So you will just abbreviate that to A B C D E. So these are things you'll have to keep in mind. So making of the set, the synthesis part, you have to be fast in that. So that's something you can actually work on in the next 7 days, because you are not going to be able to learn something new in the next 7 days, right? So it's better if you focus on how to improve what you already know. So just take a minute, any last couple of questions for LRDA, then we'll move to the quant part. Yeah, but how you were able to synthesize fast? So, Vignesh, like that's very objective to me. So, like once I understood that this is something that I have to work on, like this comprehension is something I'm going to attempt. So it was not like I'm reading the comprehension, the set, and then going on to make the table. I would, I'm reading it while also making the table, so that saves a lot of time. See, it's not like just if you make the table and that will cut it for you. How you make the table, so as I mentioned, I just took that example of the three data lines which you have to map to each other. So for that, it was important for you to know, should we use calculator? Yeah, Pratik, I'll just come to that part in the quant section. So yeah, so in that example that I took for the three data line point, where you have to map name to the profession to the city of origin. So in that, it was important for you to see there are two tables, right? So that's two parameters in this table, two parameters in this table. So that means total of four parameters. In the question set, they are giving you three parameters, which means that one parameter you have to repeat, and that is the way it is, right? You have to pick out of these three parameters while reading the the problem statements that they'll give, that person from A works as a consultant. So here, person from A. So that's the part that you are focusing on. So you will have to take an objective call. If you want city versus person and city versus profession, or person versus city versus person versus profession, you can make the combination. So that's the call you have to make. So where I get stuck forming a table. So Ashwin, that's the call you have to take, and see the right call that you take, that will make the case much more easier. So that's something you can work on. So I give that question a new try and move on to the next question just to waste the time. So see the yeah. So while giving that question a new try, if you decide to give that question a new try, just consider the possibility that the mapping you have taken, that's wrong. Maybe there's an easier mapping for you. Just read the question again. Don't start your homework from scratch. That you scratch out what you have written and the mappings that you've already done. Don't scratch out those things. Pratik, should we use calculator? My calculation is not good. Sometimes I need calculator while solving DI sets. Uh, Ideally, you shouldn't be using the calculator because the calculator given in like that's straight up horrible. You have to like that's very inconvenient. You'll end up wasting a lot of time there. But yeah, for just to check your calculation, you can do that. Like we minor calculation check now. But I'll recommend that you don't use the calculator because it will take a lot of time. But again, that's your call to take. If you have the time to spend on the calculator, go ahead, use the calculator. It's always you know better to be sure of your calculations. So for that, a calculator can help you. But to everyone else, my suggestion is don't even during your mock test, don't fall for this trap that calculator is hooks. It's not going to help you. So just take a minute and I'll just take another sip of water and think of any quant questions that you want to ask. Yeah, so I'll just talk a little bit about the quant part. Also, in the DLR part, what I missed was that you might be able to draw enough conclusion to answer a couple of questions, and if that looks something relevant, just do that and move on to the next set. That's your call to take. But yeah, if you are able to get a couple of questions, and then as Ashwin mentioned, ki you're not able to move forward with the passage. If you're able to answer two, just be unemotional. Don't think about it that I've invested already a lot of time here, so just skip over that part. uh, so for quant, i'll uh, I'll start with a little preamble. It's going to be tough in the sense that you are probably very tired by now. It's the third section, right? So this is where your time management skills would be tested upon. My personal opinion is that quant is not very tough. It's very predictable. Quant section, you more or less know what the syllabus is, and you also know what type of questions will be coming. So that's not an issue. The issue here is that you are much tired right now, which excuse me, so which probably will not be the case with you guys because you only have 2 hours, we had 3 hours. So that's a good thing, that's in your favor. So for quant, to effectively manage the time, what I used to do was you know I used to do the paper in iterations. So I personally targeted 3 iterations, and what I mean by iterations is I'm reading the passage, I'm reading the question set, the entire questions. I'm reading it in the given order, because again that's not relevant, because I'm going to pick my questions anyway. And if and I had a very laid back attitude at that time when I'm starting the paper, the third section. I had a very laid back attitude. See, I messed up in the DLR section, but I made sure that I don't get too compassionate or try to overcompensate that for in the quant section. I went forward with my strategy. The the emotional response would have been to just start with the first question. Quant, my engineer who मेरी IIT में अच्छी rank थी. I can do quant. I can do this. No, be professional. So I was able to get a certain level of professionalism while I was attempting quant section. So I just read the questions. See, now I'm reading this question. If this question is very long, skip. If this question has a lot of data, skip. Anyway, I'm going to have three iterations. I'll take the tougher questions later on. And then there were questions that I knew the answer just by looking at that, and I didn't have to answer. So that's something that comes from concepts, which I think, in all honesty, is something you cannot work on in the last 7 days. So that's not something you want to go on. We'll just focus on the strategy part. So my target, I was able to achieve that in the first iteration. It took me close to 25 minutes, out of the 1 hour that we had, and you can scale that down to 40 minutes. So it took me 25 minutes out of 1 hour, and by the end of first iteration I would have 14 or 16 questions, and of which I was damn sure that these are correct. I'm going to score at least these much marks, right? Then you move on to the second iteration. Now during the second iteration, it's important that now you have to have a more focused problem solving approach. If you have to read the entire question. In the first iteration I used to skip the question, बहुत लंबा है छोड़ो बाद में कर लेंगे, because the point being is you want to answer maximum number of questions, because quant में problem is this only, right? Because there's a lot of questions in a very lesser amount of time. So you have to pick the right questions first, and for those things iterations work. In the second iteration, you at least read the remaining questions, you at least read all the questions, and if you think you can solve it, if it's within your purview, you focus on that. You do 8 or 10 questions more. By now you have like 25 or 26 questions in the bucket. That's just what I'm giving you of my experience. And in the third iteration, that was just the main battle part. Like, question is also long, question is tough, and I'll have to maybe do a lot of calculations. So that's where, but by then at least I was sure the rest of the paper I have attempted to a good extent. So that pays off. Is it really important to have a sound knowledge of all the syllabus? If not, what are the topmost topics other than arithmetic, of course? Uh, Ashwin, I never prepared focusing on the topic, so I don't think I'm in the position to say. But yeah, arithmetic, maybe if you are involving the equations part, so yeah, that's correct. The other thing would be the time. So there are equations about times, so there are questions about time. Ki इतने लोग इतना काम इतने टाइम पे कर रहे हैं, दो टाइप के लोग होंगे, that types of questions. So those are not much frequent, but they consistently appear in the question, and they take a lot of time. So that's something you can work on. If your geometry is good, mensuration and geometry, so that's an added bonus. For me, that was the forte. I've actually written a research paper on geometry, so my geometry was sound. So that helped me a lot, right? But yeah, so if you have a sound knowledge of all the syllabus, that's good. Even a workable knowledge will work here. And yeah, in quant, were you able to solve all the MCAT questions after the mock without help from solution manuals? I'm always not able to 3-4 questions after mock, though I haven't checked solutions for those 3-4. Yeah, Vignesh, I'll say ki, yeah, even I could not solve a couple of questions that were designed in the way that these are unsolvable. They want you to skip those questions, so that's not an issue. So don't concern yourself with that. Be more focused on how many questions are remaining for you to actually do it after the question paper, not during the question. If you attempt long challenger expert level questions, you have to keep yeah Kshitiz, keep that in the third iteration. But how did you work on those three? Yeah, so you are asking me the questions. Yeah, I'll check the solution manual maybe. See, I didn't have any mentor, so I had a very individual approach to this, so I didn't ask for any help. But yeah, so yeah, I'll give you an example. So there was a Venn diagram question that used to annoy me a lot, and it occurred in 2-3 MCATs, and then I decided that this is something I have to address. So what the issue was that normally Venn diagrams are, for three, there are three data sets, three overlapping circles. But there's an advanced form of it where you have four data points. So you cannot overlap four circles. That will give you a lot of variables. So I just searched it on YouTube. I found, I think, a crack use video or something, and then I learned from there how to approach. So then I realized that there is a structured approach to Venn diagram. So it was a learning experience for me. So, Vignesh, if you are making the same type of mistake, so you are not able to solve 3 4 questions, that's not the issue. If those 3 4 questions are of the same type, then that's something you want to address, right? See, time management in CAT, that's something I've been talking to you through the, through the different sections. For quant, I think it's very clear what I've said. Do it in 3 iterations, at least 2 iterations. Don't just, don't do that. You start with the first question, you read the first question, and it's easy, and you just, yeah, I'll solve this, because that's a trap. Then you'll keep solving, and then there will come a question where you will get stuck, and then you're stuck for the rest of the duration. So again, that same thing. This is the set of the questions that you have, back and forth a lot of time. So that will help you manage the time. For LRD, also, I think I mentioned a similar thing, and for RC, it's passage to question again and again. So you don't want to spend a lot of time on the passage. See, we can talk about, people talk about a lot of option based solving. So what actually we mean by that is you should be able to eliminate certain options. So I don't think it will be of much value to give an example at this point. But if I had to, so okay, so I'll give you just one example, right? Just give me a minute. I'll find the question and share my screen. I think I had it somewhere here. So just give me a minute. All right, all right, all right. Just give me a minute. Okay, sure. I'm presenting my screen, right? Someone talked about mentally solving the questions. So I'll give you an example of that here. I think you can see it clearly. Is it zoomed enough? Right? I think you can see. Now see this question number 3, right? The number of real roots of the equation something something, right? Now the important thing to notice here is there's a prefix to here, and 2 times something cos. This thing can maximum the instant, your thought process would be like this. For this question, I did not have to pick up my pen. I was very clear. 2 cos. Okay, now this cos value, this cannot be greater than 1, which means this side cannot be greater than 2. On the RHS, what do I see? A, if I call 2 ki power x to be a, so a plus 1 by a. We know from AMG inequality, this cannot be lesser than 2. This cannot be greater than 2. This cannot be lesser than 2. So if they have to be equal, they have to be equal to 2. So both sides have to be equal to 2. Now 2 ki power x plus 2 ki power minus x can be equal to 2 only when x is equal to 0. Right? Otherwise, it's the point of inflection. And you put 0 here, you check it, that makes sense, right? Now think about this in this way. If this is the mental approach that I took, now you go through the options. Infinity, that doesn't make any sense. Cos of something, that's bounded, right? That's a bounded function. It's going to be between -1 to 1, and you multiply it by 2, so it's going to be between -2 and 2. So this left side is going to be bounded. Now just look at the right side. Just assume an x key value 1000. Now this side is going to go very high. This is a function that increases completely on the positive side and decreases continuously from the negative side. So infinite solutions होने के infinite intersections होना चाहिए. So infinite is not going to be an answer, right? So I was able to eliminate one option. I didn't have to in this question, but if I had to eliminate an option, you can do it here. Okay, now, if you want to look here, let's say this question. Now you see, नीचे रूट ऑफ समथिंग प्लस रूट ऑफ समथिंग है, द लॉजिकल थिंग टू डू इज की रूट ऑफ a2 माइनस रूट ऑफ a1 से मल्टीप्लाई कर दो, ठीक है, दैट विल मेक इट a2 माइनस a1. a2 माइनस a1 क्या है, दिस इज एन अरिथमेटिक प्रोग्रेशन विच मीन्स a2 माइनस a1 इज द डिफरेंस, कॉमन डिफरेंस, दैट्स गोइंग टू बी d, विच मीन्स कि इन सारे टर्म्स का सम करने में जो प्रॉब्लम आ रही थी कि डिनोमिनेटर सबका डिफरेंट है, अगर मैं इसको वो कर दूं, क्या बोलते हैं इसको, रियलाइज बोलते हैं, ऐसा कुछ बोलते हैं, लाइक कॉम्प्लीमेंट से मल्टीप्लाई कर दो, सो डिनोमिनेटर सबका कॉमन हो जाएगा, तो एडिशन वुड बी इजी, तो डिनोमिनेटर डी बन जाएगा. सो दैट्स एन अप्रोच. सी, यू आर लुकिंग एट द क्वेश्चंस, यू आर एबल टू रियलाइज राइट कि कुछ नया नहीं है ये, दिस यू नो कि अंडर रूट डिनोमिनेटर में अंडर रूट दिस प्लस दिस आएगा, तो आई मल्टीप्लाई विद अंडर रूट दिस माइनस दिस, ठीक है. और आई डोंट थिंक these kind of questions, like a lot of calculations is involved, so you'll have to do that. So I skipped this one, fifth one. ये तो पढ़ने में बहुत बड़ा है, skip. See now this one, seventh question, mod of x plus mod of y less than equal to 2. Now this makes sense, right? You know, this is a very standard graph, you might have encountered a question like this in your mock, so you know this is going to form a square around the, you know, origin. So you know it makes sense to attempt this question. Now if you look at this question, right, this a1 to an equal to this for every n grade, now they are asking you for a11, so this is sum till n, so you find sum till 11, if you subtract sum till 10, what will remain, a11. Very standard question, you just have to, you know, do the calculation part, just that. But I think that's that's pretty much it. If you have any more questions, I'll be happy to take it. Rationalize, yeah, Preeti, sorry, yeah, I haven't done quant in a long time now. Quant is that one section which gives me chills and I got cold. It feels like I'm not prepared at all. I can't solve any questions, literally. Ashwin, quant is very slow. Get that out of your mind. Like it's not difficult. Like I think I've sufficiently demonstrated that the questions that you will be getting would pretty much be like what you have been doing. You know, and even in fact much easier than that. Give me a second. I have to. Yeah. So I'm just putting my links here. So you can, you know, follow me anywhere. I'm not much active on Facebook. You can talk to me on Instagram or LinkedIn. Uh, I don't think I'll be able to reply to emails that much, but you can, you know, always ping me up on Instagram or LinkedIn. So you can talk to me there. And if you have any feedback, if you have any more follow-up questions, that you can address there. But yeah, I think if you have any generic questions at this point, anything you want to know, you can talk about it. And if anyone wishes to drop off right now, so I'll just take 10 minutes here more. Even I have to do something else. So we'll just talk 10 minutes for any general thing you want to know, maybe about MBA, maybe about the GDPI process, anything. And for those who are going to be attempting the paper in this week, so you know, all the very best to you. Stay professional. That's everything I'm going to say to you. And you know you can do it. Just be sure that you can do it, and do not introspect during that last half an hour. That's going to backfire on you. But apart from that, it's going to be easy. You know, you guys can do it. All the very best, guys. So if anyone has any general question, you can, you know, put it in the chat. Okay, Vignesh. If anyone wishes to drop off, you can actually at this point. You can, you know, take my contact details and then you can go. All the best. What books basics did you refer for quant? Because I didn't know cost range and its domain. So Vignesh, for these types of, you know, data points, you will find that the module that you are given from your coaching institution. So that's exactly a compilation of these basic facts. So उसमें in depth नहीं मिलेगा, but you'll find that thing. How they got to there, they might not show it, but yeah, you'll find a lot of these things there. Yeah, Vignesh, I took Times test series, so उसके साथ में they gave a lot of, you know, additional resources. I'm confused between M.Tech and MBA. So what, how to choose? See, if you, I'm assuming you have been doing B.Tech. So if you think the first factor you should consider is if B.Tech is if you know this engineering side is something you really wanted to go with. MBA more or less is for those people who don't have any other option or who don't know what's going to be good for them. No, yeah, can I suggest some good coaching institutions? Yeah, time is great. I had no complaints from time. Uh, Apart from that, I have heard that Career Launcher is also good, and I think there's some other institution called IMS. So, but my personal experience has been with time only, so that's all I can focus on. Thank you, Saloni, much appreciated. All the very best. I'm weak in quant and I don't have maths background. Can you please tell the right strategy to prepare for 2021 CAT examination? You take you take a coaching course for that and you actually do the course. So for people who are attempting the CAT this year, now even if you have talked to me 1 month ago, I would not have recommended you to go through the modules and those things, right? Because 1 month is not enough to cut it. So even at that point, I would have asked you focus more on the strategy part. But you have a lot of time, Hasya, so you can actually look into that. Actually studying the content since you don't have a mathematical background. I didn't refer any basic books for quants. Vignesh, I actually didn't have to. I could have done. But since I prepared for mathematics a lot during my IIT time, so I didn't have to. But yeah, so but I did have to refer for certain formulas. Some of GP, these types of formulas, just to not some of GP, let's say some of HP, harmonic progression. That's something I couldn't remember. So I did go through the module that the time has provided me on the very last day. Like on the last day, you don't have to do anything. Don't do a mock or think about the mock or do any sort of analysis there in the last day, right? You have to do these types of things. Just do things you are very chill with, and so at that point, I just revise the formula. So for that, the module helps. Does exams other than CAT have a worth? Literally. Uh, See, uh, so Xavier's, I think they are a very good B school. So they have a lot of value. Even I think it's Nitty. So I'm not sure how they take admissions, but the CAT has the biggest value because it gives you access to a lot of colleges, right? So that's the only proposition point. But for Xavier's, you have to give the CAT ZAT. So there's no shortcut for that. Where did you go coaching in early attempts? Yeah, Vignesh, I did not go for coachings. I only took the test series both years, time test series. That's it. How to start preparing for CAT 21? What all things should be done while preparing? Is it necessary to take coaching or should I stick to self study? See, Nikhil, I champion. I think I like to represent those people who can do it on their own. But if you can do it on your own, that has a certain that gives you a certain substance. But having said that, coaching can be important for you, and coaching can be important for you in the sense that if you don't have the time with sufficient time, for most of you guys who are going to sit for the CAT 21 examination, you have a lot of time in hand, so you can actually look into doing it on your own. My bottom line is coaching is not important for CAT. Mocks are important, test series are important, but coaching is not important. So yeah, so are you talking when you say this are strong areas stronger work or weak areas? Yeah, so I'm assuming that you're talking about those who are going to be taking the test in the coming week. See, I'll put another category. Strong area, weak area, and hopeless area. Don't focus on the hopeless area now, right? Just make sure that what your strength is that remains your strength and work on your weaker areas. Don't spend a lot of time now. Like last week, mein don't do ki 7 days hai, I'll do 10 mock tests. Now that opportunity is lost, and so that something is lost. You don't have to worry about it, right? You should focus more on making sure that you're able to retain things, and you can go forward with I think 5 mock tests in this last week, and skip the part about don't do a mock and then analyze it. Do 3 mocks and then analyze those 3 together, because now your time is going to be of much value this last week. So don't spend a lot of time on analysis. This is the part where analysis से जो conclusion है आपका कि this is my strength, this is my weakness. So Make sure your strength is strength. You apply it. Make sure that you apply your strength during the examinations. Focus on the weaker areas. This, like, at least for the next 3 days, you can look into ensuring that you master the concepts. And the last couple of days, I'll just say, just chill, yaar. You deserve that. You've been working so hard. What books you had referred in math during your JE, which might have helped you in CAT? Actually, yeah, for for IIT JEE, you actually have to take a coaching. So coaching का ही material होता था. Vignesh, you take my details. I'll have a look and let you know if I can think of any book for the same. Right? Yeah. See, I'm posting this message again. Did I not share it already? Okay, so I shared it with. Okay, so I'm putting my details here. I hope these are visible to everyone. So yeah, you can get in touch with me in Instagram or LinkedIn, whichever you feel comfortable with, right? In your view, how we can quantify best for us from HR, marketing, finance, specializations, right? What should we look up to? See, it's up to your, playing your strengths for that. So I have, fin background as said because I've been doing CFA. So finance makes sense for me. Having said that, uh, I'm going into consulting. So the company I mentioned, Carney. So that's a consulting company, one of the biggest. So I'll be going with consulting. So see, these opinions will change with respect to the opportunities that you're given in your college, whichever you choose, and there's a lot of time to think about that. So you shouldn't be worrying about that. Your area of specialization right at this point. Insta ID name, it's mentioned here, right? I think it's mentioned here. So I think, guys, that's it. You can let me know if this session was helpful for you. I'm active. I'm fairly active on Instagram and LinkedIn. So yeah, you can let me know there also. And I think all the best, guys. Just do your best. And if you have any very particular doubt, yeah, which be so if you are having any sort of panic or something, you can just text me on Instagram. I'll try to talk to you. Yeah, thanks, Vignesh. I have examinations from Wednesday, but yeah, you'll realize that what sort of examinations these are. Yeah, Ashwin, looking forward to it. And don't call me Sir Kshitiz. More or less of your age will call me. Okay, so I think that's it, Mac. Right? I think I'll just drop off now. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.